Hello and welcome to another episode of Talking All Sports. I'm your host, Zach, and on this week's episode, we've got another week of action-packed sport to unpack, which includes the NBA playoffs, some EPL action that is very, very interesting, Champions League action, AFL action as well as previewing the week ahead and some more Star of the Week nominations. So let's not waste any more time. I'm too excited to talk about it, and let's get stuck into it. Kick off the week in review, we're going to be talking about the EPL. So let's go through some of the results. Leeds and Newcastle had a 2-2 draw that hurts Newcastle's chances of holding on to a third spot, especially with the likes of United and Liverpool now breathing down their neck. Villa knocked off Spurs 2-1. Chelsea and Forest had a 2-2 draw. Palace beat Bournemouth 2-0. Man United beat Wolves 2-0, which helps them when it comes to challenging for that Champions League spot. Fulham, they beat Southampton 2-0, which sees them now in 10th. Brentford, they knocked off West Ham 2-0, which puts some more pressure on West Ham when it comes to trying to survive the relegation battle. And likewise, under even more pressure in the relegation battle was Everton, who had no luck in defeating Man City. They lost 3-0 to what looks to be the future champions of this season, as Arsenal got defeated 3-0 at home to Brighton, which has probably ended the Gunners' title hopes. And wow, that is a massive bottle if they have lost this title now, with the being on top for most of the season and then letting it slip right at the death. I think the mental games got to them, but it'll be interesting to see. Could City potentially slip up now at the end and Arsenal steal it like a Steve Bradbury? But it looks like City have got the title wrapped up now after that performance. And Liverpool knocked off Leicester 3-0, which puts even more pressure on Man United as they are charging home, finishing the season strong, trying to get the last spot into the Champions League for next season. Speaking of Champions League, we had some Champions League results happen over the week. Man City and Real Madrid couldn't be separated in the first leg in Madrid. They are at 1-1 and now play in the second leg against each other in Man City, which is in Manchester, which is going to be absolutely phenomenal. Inter Milan have a 2-0 lead over their arch rivals AC Milan in the Milan Derby after they defeated them 2-0 in the first leg of their Champions League semi-final. They will now go to Inter's stadium to see who will go through to the Champions League final. Now we're going to be talking about some NBA playoff action, and we had the LA Lakers knocking out the reigning champs, the Golden State Warriors, in 6 games, knocking them out of the Western Conference semifinals. They will now play the Denver Nuggets, who also knocked out Phoenix in 6 games in the Western Conference Finals. The Celtics, they were able to outlast the Sixers in 7 games, which was a fantastic series. They will now take on the Miami Heat, who knocked out the Knicks in 6 games in the Eastern Conference Finals. And it's a bit of deja vu, as this is a rematch of the Western and Eastern Conference Finals that were in the bubble in 2020, which saw the Lakers and the Heat come out on top in their respective conferences, and then the Lakers ending up as overall champions. Will history repeat itself, or we're going to have Nuggets versus Celtics in the final, or we're going to have a completely unique matchup of Lakers, Celtics, or Nuggets, Heat? It'll be interesting to watch. I think these conference finals are going to be very, very exciting. Let me know in the comments who you think is going to be advancing to the next round and making it through to the NBA finals. For what should be a very historic and a very entertaining finale and end to a great playoff series. Also in the NBA world, they had the draft lottery, and the San Antonio Spurs landed the number 1 pick, which means they're probably going to land Victor Wembanyama. That's massive for San Antonio, especially Greg Popovich, who looks like he can coach now for another 150 years with a generational prospect, or what people are calling the unicorn, for him being so unique, the Frenchman Victor Wembanyama. That'll be very exciting for San Antonio. It'll be very interesting if that now sees the Spurs as potentially a destination spot. How many MVPs or how many championships are the Spurs and Wembanyama going to get out of their relationship together, as he's probably going to go pick one. So let me know in the comments how many or what success Wembanyama is going to achieve at the Spurs, and likewise what the Spurs are going to achieve with Wembanyama. Now we're going to be talking about some AFL action that happened over the week. Tassie team is now in doubt. Could potentially not happen after those 2 political members pulled out of Jeremy Rockcliffe's party, which could now see them, if they go as an independent party and find themselves winning the election, the Tasmanian election, which is coming up, they will scrap the stadium, and the AFL have declared there is no Tassie team without the new stadium, which is very interesting to watch. I hope for the AFL's sake this doesn't fall through. For Tasmania's sake, I know there's a lot of Tasmanians who do not want this team, but I mean, there's heaps of Tasmanians who are really keen and really excited that they're finally going to get an AFL team. I think with all the excitement and the hype around it, it would be embarrassing and devastating if it wasn't to go through. So I hope for the sake of everyone's reputation and image, this does go through and that everything is sorted and all good. But that was major news over the week. The grand final time is also staying at 2:30 this year. It's not going to go to a twilight or a night grand final. Look, personally for me, I think that's an awesome result. I didn't want it to go to twilight or night. I think it's brilliant at 2:30. I mean, you get on the piss with your mates at 10:30, 11 o'clock, you have fun. It's a whole day of just footy and enjoying it with friends and family, and if your team's in it, it's you got less to wait around for the game. I know as a Melbourne supporter, in their grand final, it was at night, so I had to wait the whole day to see my team play in a grand final, which was not good on me, I don't think mentally or physically. So I think it's a great result that the AFL is sticking with the 2:30 grand final time slot. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. You think it should have been a twilight or a night grand final, or you, like me, and are happy with the 2:30 time slot? Now we're going to get stuck into the teams who impressed me the most coming out of round 9. We're going to start off with the Fremantle Dockers. Fair play to them. They've been fantastic the last 2 weeks. A great win against Hawthorn. Now going to Sydney and knocking off Sydney, who were desperate for a win as well. Absolutely brilliant from Freo. The likes of Luke Jackson were fantastic. Brayshaw was fantastic. Sarong was fantastic. Super Sub 5. Who would have thought we'd be calling him the Super Sub? Brilliant from Fremantle. It looks like they've found their form again. 2 great important wins now in a row, and a massive game against the reigning premiers Geelong, who look to be in all sorts with the injuries that they've got at the moment. That'll be very interesting to watch on Saturday afternoon. So Freo, big ticks, big 2 thumbs up for 2 great wins in a row. They definitely impressed me the most over the week. Joining them in the most impressive as well is the Tigers after their fantastic performance against Geelong on Friday night. Now, I know a lot of people were saying Richmond's midfield against that Geelong's midfield. It was expected, this result. Richmond still had to go out there and do it. And the way they won that game, I thought was very impressive as well. I thought the performances of the likes of Noah Bolter, Nathan Broad, Dylan Grimes, Dusty Martin was back to his best. Trent Cotchin kicked 3 goals. Some great performances all round from the Tigers, and I think that was a major, major contribution as to why they were able to win. They look like the Tigers of old, and I know when it was against Melbourne, I wasn't a fan of them, but when they were playing at their best, they were so exciting to watch Richmond. It was very enjoyable. It was great for the competition when they're at their best, and I mean, as a mutual fan, that was awesome to see Richmond with their desperation, their hunger, their pressure around the contest. It was all back, as well with a more improved defense. I thought they were very impressive, Richmond, as well over the weekend, and they deserve to be in that category as well. And to round out most impressive of the weekend, I have to go with the Adelaide Crows. I did not see that performance coming against the St Kilda's defense, which is meant to be, it is ranked statistically the number 1 defense in the comp at the moment, and is meant to be one of the best in the comp at the moment under new coach Ross Lyon. The Crows were fantastic from start to finish. Burst out of the gates, leading by 30, 40 points at quarter time, and did not stop. It wasn't like they had a quarter where they dwelled a bit and they didn't really dominate St Kilda. For 4 quarters, they were fantastic. Their fitness showed as well. They looked so dynamic going up forward with the targets of Tex Walker, Isaac Rankin, Darcy Fogarty. I mean, and then you've got Saligo and Pedlar, who looked fantastic. Michelini down back, as a first-year player, has been brilliant. Adelaide looked the goods. I'm very excited with the Crows. I did say, I know this is a bit of a head wobble. I did say they were going to be the biggest risers this season. They look it at the moment. I mean, you got the likes of Port Adelaide doing well as well. St Kilda have been surprisingly good as well, but not as good as the Crows were on Sunday. They were fantastic, and they definitely get to round out the most impressive teams of the weekend. Now we've got to look into the teams who were the most disappointing, and we're going to start off with the Saints. I just did not see that coming from them. I thought under Ross Lyon that they would be very more diligent. They wouldn't be starting off like that away from home. After a bad performance against North, you'd think they want to be putting in a better performance, knowing that if they were to put in that performance, they would get a very bad result against Adelaide. And it seems as though they didn't wake up from that North game and put in the same performance. Got jumped at the start, weren't able to recover. Adelaide's momentum was too strong, and the Saints weren't able to fight back. They were very brave at times. It looked like they were trying to get themselves back into the game, but I think with the way the game finished as well, it was almost like they just threw the towel in, the Saints. Not good enough from St Kilda. They definitely are part of the most disappointed bracket. And again, this week, the Swans, they joined the Saints in the most disappointed bracket as well this week. I mean, that's a must-win game, and it looked like the frustration got the better of them. I think there was 6 50-metre penalties that the Swans gave away. I mean, you had some great performances from individuals in Sydney's team, but as a collective, it almost seemed as though when something didn't go their way, they just have a tantrum or a hissy fit, and it was very disappointing from Sydney. They were in the game, they had chances to win it, they weren't playing at their best, but it looked like they could steal it. They were at home, and they weren't able to do it. So the Swans, they go into my most disappointed again, and slowly this season is starting to slip away from them. So they need to start getting back into some good form and to start winning some games, and it starts this week. They've got to knock off the next team who come into their most disappointed, which is North Melbourne. That is a massive game against Port Adelaide. You're up against Jason Horne-Francis, who's caused enough turmoil through the media for your club, and most of you players turn up and basically almost give up midway through that second quarter. I know Port Adelaide have been very good this season, but the effort there from North was not there at all. I mean, they got convincingly beaten again. And I know people are going to say it's a young team, young rebuilding team. We didn't see the lack of effort there in round 1 and round 2 when they knocked off the Eagles at home. I know that's the Eagles. And then knocked off Freo in Freo. Where has that effort gone? It seems as though the confidence has been zapped out of them, which is really, really disappointing. They need to find that confidence back just so that they can even just compete with some of these teams. A 90-point loss to Melbourne. That performance against Port Adelaide where they lose by 10 to 11 goals. The performance against the Saints, they were lucky it wasn't even uglier because that was horrendous, that performance against St Kilda. They're staring down the barrel, potentially wooden spoon, if they don't get their act together pretty soon and West Coast and Hawthorn start developing to get better. Because the Eagles are getting closer to a win. Although the Hawks' last 2 performances weren't fantastic, they have shown signs that they could potentially get a win. And just to remind you, Hawthorn's only win this season has been against, guess who? Yes, North Melbourne in Tasmania. So that effort from North was not great. They are heading down the wrong path. They need to fix their stuff very, very soon, or else they could potentially get one of the greatest coaches of all time sacked because the effort is despicable. It's disgusting almost, and I think for North fans, they'd be very disappointed. It almost looks like that some of these players don't want to rebuild. They don't want to get better, and it's very, very disappointing. So they round out the most disappointed for this week. Now we're going to get stuck into the round 9 power rankings, heading into round 10. As you can see, bit of movement. The Power, they jump into the top 4, well deserved. Geelong slipping down a 5th. The Dogs, they're getting higher and closer to the top 4. Port Adelaide and Bulldogs, in my opinion, are the 2 most informed teams in the comp. No one wants to be playing them right now. However, it is one to watch. Are they peaking a little bit too early? They're stringing a lot of wins together and are looking the goods. The Saints, they go below the Bulldogs due to their performance against the Crows, and the Swans are clinging and hanging on to that last spot in the 8, but Adelaide are breathing down their neck and deserve, in my opinion, you can definitely argue deserve to be in that top 8, but for now they just sit underneath Sydney. Carlton are underneath Adelaide, and unless they can put in a good performance against Collingwood or they start going backwards, they're going to go even further down because the likes of Essendon, Richmond and Fremantle could jump them. Essendon not really so much. I felt like putting Richmond above them, but I think this week's game, the Dreamtime game, Essendon Richmond will determine who goes above with the other for the short term. And Freo, 2 wins in a row. I want to put them higher. I just need to see a good performance against Geelong, potentially as the Cats are a little bit wounded, knocking them off this week. Could see them jump higher. The Suns, next in line there. A great win against West Coast, but I can't just put them any higher, although they deserve to be higher. And the Giants, there's probably a little bit of gap between the Suns and the Giants at the moment. And then there's a major gap between the Giants and the rest of the bottom three. North Melbourne, very lucky to hold their position there. Hawthorn, if they were able to keep that margin with the Demons a little closer, they definitely would have jumped them. But that is the round 9 power rankings. Now we're going to be moving on to the Star of the Week nominations. We've got 3 more Star of the Week nominations to join an already super list. And about time this guy gets one. Matthew Rowell gets his first Star of the Week nomination from the Gold Coast Suns. He was sensational in their massive win against the Eagles on Friday night. He's been having a very good season. 29 disposals, 6 clearances, 17 tackles, 10 score involvements. 13 of those 29 disposals were contested, and he had 8 inside 50s. I guess the question is, after the first couple of games of his career, I think a lot of people thought he could potentially win the Brownlow in his first year. He did drop off a little bit in his second and third year. He's in year 4 now. Can he become a Brownlow medalist before he retires? I think he's starting to hit that trajectory now that he's going to get back to the form of those 4 games, the first 4 games that we saw him play. I guess the question now, I want you all to answer in the comments. Let me know, will he win a Brownlow medal before he retires? Nonetheless, even if he doesn't, he's a very, very worthy recipient of a Star of the Week nomination this week. The next nominee for the Star of the Week is Errol Goulden, and although his team did lose again, he was fantastic in a losing side, and he has been fantastic in a losing side for the last few weeks. He had 39 disposals on the weekend, 2 goals, 8 clearances, 8 score involvements. 11 of those 39 disposals were contested, and he had 7 inside 50s in a losing side. You think with those stats, he's the 3 votes in a winning side. Has he gone past Chad Warner now as the better out of the 2? I mean, you going into this season, you could definitely say Chad Warner was better. But with the form Warner's in now, and the form Goulden's in, and the resume that Goulden's got against Warner for their careers so far, could you say Goulden has gone past Warner at the present time? I think they're both going to be fantastic players for the Sydney Swans in the long term. But I think right now the question can be asked, is Goulden better than Chad Warner? Let me know in the comments as well if you think that is the case or if you think I'm being ridiculous. And the final Star of the Week nomination goes to the big Brisbane Lions spearhead forward, Joe Daniher. He was magnificent against his former side on Saturday night. He kicked 6 goals, 9 marks, 16 disposals, 9 score involvements. Full forward, 0 goal assist. That should how all full forwards be. You are employed as a full forward to kick goals, and that's exactly what Daniher did over the weekend. I mean, he struggled early on in the season. The media was starting to get onto him about his form. A lot of people were disappointed with how he was going. Saw him as potentially a liability for Brisbane. It's great to see. It looks like he's turned that around and ignored that outside noise and really focused on his footy as he's starting to play some good footy. And can he be, now this is a bit far-fetched, I will agree with you, but let me know in the comments if he could be an almighty sneaky chance of winning the Coleman this year. Let me know in the comments if you think so. I don't know, it could be too far-fetched, but I want to know what you guys think. Otherwise, he's a very deserved winner of a recipient of a Star of the Week nomination. Now looking at the week ahead in the world of sport, AFL-wise, we've got round 10 action. Sir Doug Nicholls round, the Indigenous round. The Indigenous jumpers look great, by the way. I think all clubs have absolutely nailed it, and it's very exciting to see and celebrate the Indigenous culture through the footy. Round 10 kicks off with a great game. Port Adelaide versus Melbourne. I can't really say Port Adelaide's Indigenous name, but they're versing Nam Demons for this week. It's going to be a fantastic game. Should be pretty close. My tip's Port, although I do want Melbourne to win, of course. So, but that's going to be a ripper game to watch. North Melbourne kick off the early Saturday games whilst hosting the Swans. Bulldogs play Adelaide over in Ballarat. The Dockers, they take on the Cats in a Saturday twilight, which I think is a very underrated game. Very hard to pick that one. Dreamtime at the G is another hard game to pick. as Essendon and Richmond play against each other. It seems as though Essendon are coming down from their high a bit, whilst Richmond are starting to reach their high, and they're meeting right in the middle. So that'll be a very interesting game to watch. And the Q Clash is on Saturday night as well, which could be interesting. Gold Coast are in pretty good form. Brisbane are in pretty good form. They meet in the Gabba in what will be a hotly, in both temperature and intensity contested match. Hawks host the Eagles in the early Sunday game. Most people are saying it's the Harley Reid Cup. I agree so as well. The loser will probably get Harley Reid. The Blues and the Pies, Sunday 3:20. That's going to be a ripper. I cannot wait. I guess it's going to be very interesting. Can Carlton knock off the informed Collingwood? People will say the Pies are due for a loss, and Carlton really, really need a win. They meet at a really good time. The last time, obviously, they played against each other. The Pies knocked Carlton out and ripped their hearts out of their chest, knocked them out of the finals, and Collingwood also made top 4 because of that. That's going to be a fantastic match at the G on Sunday. Cannot wait for that. And the Giants take on St Kilda in the final game of the round, which I think will also be interesting as well. As the Giants, they've lost a few games and they got beaten pretty badly against Collingwood. Will look to want to bounce back against St Kilda. They've got quite a bit of pride, this young Giants team. And the Saints, likewise, want to bounce back after their disappointing performance. They go on the road 2 weeks in a row, take on the Giants, and that'll be a very interesting game to finish off a great round of footy. Also, in the week ahead of sport, more NBA playoff action for both the Western and Eastern Conference Finals. Lakers, Nuggets, Celtics, Heats. It's going to be fantastic and very enjoyable to see how that unfolds. We've also got some more Premier League action as the Premier League title race comes down to the wire. It looks like City should win it, but if they slip up, Arsenal could potentially take their chance and potentially win the title. And the relegation battle as well is definitely one to watch as that's starting to heat up, with more teams becoming safer and more teams becoming even more in danger of dropping down. We've also got the championship playoff tournament going at the moment between Middlesbrough, Coventry City, as well as Sunderland and Luton Town. That will decide the third and final team going up from the championship to the Premier League, as Burnley and Sheffield United have already cemented their spot. So that's definitely one to watch as well, which is really, really exciting. That's all we've got time for on this week's episode of Talking All Sport. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you'd like. It would mean a lot to me, and let me know all of your thoughts and opinions in the comments on AFL, NFL, NBA, EPL, cricket, hockey, baseball, NRL, you name it. Let me know. I'll listen. I'll reply. I'll make sure to take any recommendations, and I would definitely talk about it in the next episode. Enjoy the weekend of sport. I think it's going to be a ripper. It's going to be a cracker. I feel as though there's going to be a lot to talk about next week. And speaking of next week, that's when I'll see you next. Have a good one and see you next week.